Main idea. In this section, Conrad is remembering when his dad was telling him a story about how he had gotten a war medal. He had said that all it does is remind him of the men he had killed for him to be honored to have the medal. This is important because it shows that even though you think it would be great to be honored, it brings up past memories and pain that would be better off not having. Many people think that it would be awesome to be honored, but they don't know the burden that comes with it. The theme coming out of this is that heroism is a difficult thing to live with. Connection. In this section, Vasily is remembering a quote spoken by his father. He said, "It's unpatriotic to put personal wants ahead of the struggle to free Russia." This reminds me of memories of my father when he told me that you should be proud to fight for Canada because it's your country and you should fight for it. This means that you are lucky to live in such a good country, that you should fight to show support and respect to it and the people living there. Inference. I predict that the Russians and Allied armies will try to attack in small groups again, but it will be more costly. I think this because I know that the tide turns in favor for the Allied armies later in the war. I also know from another book that the Allied armies trained special soldiers to work in small strike teams that caused a lot of damage and didn't risk as many lives.
Main idea. In this part of the book, Vasily is in the 13th Guard Rifle Division. He's going outside of Moscow for the first time. He's going to the 13th Guard Transit Camp south of Moscow. The reason why Vasily joined the army is because his dad wanted him to, and his dad fought in the Civil War. He wanted to make his father proud.
Question. What will Sergei do now, knowing that the bodies he saw were from World War II? Will he share his newfound knowledge with someone else?
My connection. Hipton Bernhard vu Schmidt assessed the situation after the Russian attack and took much caution. This reminds me of my coach in hockey. After the other team scored, he called a timeout to assess the situation. Inference. In this part, Comrade's tank battalion was attacked. I think that the tank battalion will be attacked again. I think this because, from my background knowledge, the Russians pushed back the Germans, so I think that there has to be another attack. Question. What do you think will happen if the Russians attack Conrad's tank battalion and hit and destroy the first tank? What will they do without their tank battalion leader?
I think the main idea is a bunch of people going off to war and a story about how this one squad has a hard time while Sergei is still having problems with his memory. My connection is text to self when I used to play war with my friends and with toy guns. This reminds me of when Sergei in the novel would have his memories when he would play with his toys and guns. My inference is I think that the Russians are going to come back and beat the war when the other team runs into a secret base or something like that. I think that because in the novel it says that there's a huge line of anti-tanks just sitting there waiting for an attack. For Sergei, I think he will stay underground and keep remembering when he was just a little boy. While I was reading, I wondered how old Vasily and Conrad were, because it said they could not go to war because they were too young.
My question is, do you think Vasily will die? I infer the tank named Lily will explode, and Conrad and his allies will die. I think the main idea would be all the soldiers just going off to war. I think my connection would be the Russia and Germany going to war, how me and my friends always have Polygon wars.
The question I am responding to is Isaac's. His was, what do you think will happen if the Russians attack Conrad's battalion in a hit and destroy the first tank? What will they do without their tank battalion leader? Answer. I think that if the Russians hit and destroy Vasily and his tank, they would have to issue an autopsy and witness to gather more detail. They would also have to call up a new leader from another division to lead their squadron.
I'm going to try to answer Tyler's question. I think that Sergey will keep it a secret from the others because of when he said, "No, this is not a police matter." I'm going to try to answer Isaac's question. I think that there will be another attack by the anti-tanks that were in the line because why else would they be just sitting there in that line?
I think that Sergey will tell people about the bodies, and they might link to Vasily in World War II.
I'm going to try to answer Wyatt Dutch's question. I think that they will not die while being in Lily's tank because everyone is determined to beat.
Main idea. In this section, Conrad looks at the medal that his dad had won in World War I. Conrad is a German soldier fighting in World War II. His dad fought in World War I and had gotten the medal, but was injured and later died. Conrad wishes his father was here, but at the same time accepts the consequences of life. This is important because it shows that even though you go through rough things, you should still accept it and be thankful for what you did have. People think about what was taken, not what you were given. The theme emerging is that you should accept the consequences of life and always remember what. Connection. In this section, Vasily and the train full of Russian soldiers gets bombed. Yet they still get up and go headstrong, fighting through weakness and fatigue. I have a text-to-text connection on this. It reminds me of another book that talked about captured Canadians from World War II building tunnels in their prison to break out. Even though they were caught, they started on another tunnel, fighting through weakness and punishment for one another. Inference. I predict that Vasily's piano abilities will become crucial to the book and its story. I think this because in the book it says that even the hardened were reduced to tears. Also, I know that music is beautiful, and I've heard of stories that people on different sides of war stop fighting because of it. I predict that it might soften Vasily's enemies just enough to help them through the book. Question. Why does Sergei think back to the early times of war? Is he remembering or fighting?
Main idea. I think this section was how the war is just getting started and how it ended so quickly. I think this because of when the train got attacked by the Nazi bomb. My connection would be when Vasily is getting attacked on the train and the bomb is coming down around them. This reminds me of when my brother would throw water balloons way up high and try to hit me, just as if it was a bomb. Inference. I think that Vasily will keep up with what he was doing with that sniper girl because he liked talking to her. Also, I think that because he said that was the most he has ever talked to a girl, and he actually liked talking to her. What do you think the song meant when they sung it after the train got split in half?
Main idea. Think of life as a gift, not a given, because Conrad and his fellow soldiers could die at any time, so they gotta value their lives to the fullest, and don't throw their lives away storming into Stalingrad. So they decided to lob shells into the streets of Stalingrad instead of throwing their lives away. Connection. My connection is about how they have been talking a lot about tanks recently in the book, and this reminds me of my great-grandpa because he was a German tank engineer during World War II and received many medals for it. Inference. I think that the Russians are gonna ambush Conrad and his fellow mates because during World War II there was a lot of ambushes by the Russians, and they were mainly known for ambushing. Question. Do you think Conrad will survive the battle for Stalingrad?
In this part of the book, Vasily meets a girl in the same company as him. I think that he really likes this girl because in the story it says that he's gasping for air. Also, she is his squad sniper, so I think they will try to outdo each other for sniping the most Germans. My connection. My connection is text itself. When Sergei was playing a war game on his 8th birthday, he was using a fake gun to play out what was happening in the war. This reminds me when me and my friends were playing out what was happening in the war in Afghanistan. I think that in the book, Conrad's tank will be attacked by more girls, and Conrad will think that they are barbaric too, and he won't want to kill any more Russians because of how much he thinks he and the German army are so barbaric. What do you think the line that John Wilson said, Sergei remembers he escaped a beating? What do you think that means?
I will be answering Justin's question. His was, what do you think the song meant when they sung it after the train when it got split in half? I think the song was talking about how someone is going away and leaving a loved one behind, because it talks about someone's smile and someone else's sadness in the first two paragraphs, and in the third it says that they are now far away from each other.
Tyler's question. I think that he is trying to remember what happened and how bad it was. And I think he's going to link that to the bodies he found earlier in the book.
I think the main idea of this book so far would be they're preparing for Stalingrad, since Conrad has been seeing a little bit of experience. My connection is my great-grandfather fought in the War of Stalingrad. My question is, why do you think the girls were working the artillery gun? I infer that the book will get a lot more exciting and a lot of action because the book has been kind of boring so far. I am answering Jacob's question, as in, why do you think Conrad would die? I don't think he will, just because he's one of the main characters, and he has a lot of supporters on his side.
Main idea. In this section, Paisley is going to the battlefield, where he can see gunfire and explosions all around. Paisley is a Russian soldier fighting in World War II against the Nazis. He's afraid of fighting and doesn't want to die, but he goes on anyways, fighting off fear for his country. This is important, because it shows that even though you might be afraid to do something you don't want to, you can still be brave and put those fears aside, especially for an honorable cause. Many people only think of their fears, which lead them to back down when you should do the right thing instead. The theme emerging is that you should stand up for your fears, especially for a good cause.
I think this section was about how Vasily, Conrad, and Sergei finally found out that war is a lot harder than what they think it was. I think this because when Conrad and Vasily thought it would be very easy and they were going to beat them no matter what.
Connection. In this section, Sergei has thought back to a certain part of his childhood, a part shortly after his apartment has been bombed and reduced to rubble. I have a text-to-text connection on this. It reminds me of the book thief, where Liesel's house was bombed. Even though they were bombed, they both survived strong.
My connection is text to self when Conrad and his group are left empty-handed after being shot at by a sniper and a group of Russians with a T-34 tank. This reminds me of when I would play paintball and I would get the bunker all shot up by the other team which had better guns.
Main idea. In this part of the book, Sergei makes a deal with Turnberry that he can have a turnip plant for every German he kills. I don't think that Sergei will be able to keep his promise because he is only 8 years old. I think that the main idea is to don't make promises that you can't keep.
Inference. I predict that Vasily will be much more calm and concentrated in the next section of the book. I think this because Vasily is now under the watch of Yelena, the sniper in his division. He has faith in her to help him, and he knows her sniping skills will come handy in a pinch. Also, one of the last paragraphs in the section states that after seeing her snipe 2 soldiers, all his fear had vanished.
Connection. In this part of the book, Sergei makes makes a promise to an old man that he can never turn up every German he kills. I have a text-to-self connection. It was when I was 10 years old. I promised that I would take out supper for our family, but I did not continue through that promise, so I got in trouble. I think that Sergey will also get in trouble.
Question: why do you think the German officer helped Sergei out of the rubble, even though he is a Russian citizen? Also, is the officer Joseph, as stated that both have red hair?
Inference. In this part of the book, when Vasily got out of the boat, he was scared but proved himself. I think that he will continue to do this because it said if you take one step back, you will be shot by your Russian officer.
Inference. I think that Vasily and Conrad will die because they are both at a very critical part in the war. Also, Conrad and his group were left empty-handed with no guns after their tank got blew up. Question. What will happen when more Russian recruits appear near Conrad's group when they have no weapons?
Question. Do you think that Conrad's tank crew will stay together after Lily was destroyed? Do you think they'll get a new tank and have the same crew? Do you think that Conrad will be the tank battalion leader?
I think the main idea is when Vasily, or whatever his name is, goes to war and he gets more experience. I infer that Vasily will have more confidence in the battlefield just because he's getting more experience. My connection is when I was playing COD with my friend, he knew he was gonna die, and I had to kill him, and I did. So what? My question is, do you think Vasily and Sergei will eventually meet in Stalingrad?
Main idea. I think that the main idea is have faith in your peers because Vasily got saved by the sniper who killed a bunch of Russians that were trying to get into their base. Inference. I think that the sniper is gonna betray them because there were many betrayals in World War II. Connection. Text to self. I was playing Call of Duty and it basically we replayed exactly what happened with Vasily being saved by the sniper, and I was saved by my friend while I was planting the bomb. Who's your or question? Who's your favorite character in the book?
I'll be answering Tyler's question. I think that he helped him because he might have thought that he was just a Russian kid, or he felt really bad for him and he really wanted to help him out. I will be answering Isaac's question. I think they will split up and then all die because they might still be more snipers in the air and they will all get shot. I will answer Wyatt's question. I don't think that Vasily and Sergei will meet each other because they are in two different places.
I will be answering Justin's question. His was, what will happen when more Russian recruits appear near Conrad's group when they have no weapons? I think that Conrad and his comrades will be saved. I think this because after they were attacked, a medic came to them and more German soldiers moved ahead of them. If more Russians do come, Conrad and his group will be back and other Germans will fight the Russians off.
I will be answering Tyler's question. I think that the officer is Joseph because Conrad said that Joseph was probably already even in Stalingrad. Also, I think that the officer helped Sergei out of his jam because the German soldiers were not there for the Russian citizens. They were there for the Russian soldiers.
I'm answering Justin's question, and I think that the Conrad and his group are gonna get killed by the Russians because the Germans lost World War II. Therefore, the Russians sort of won. So.
Inference. I think that Conrad's friend will die because of something will shoot him down like a sniper or a machine gunner. Question. What do you think that Conrad and his comrades will do next?
I think the main idea of this section would be the group of the tank engineers going to the hospital to save Eric's life. I infer Eric will go home because he has, and they will get a new comrade. My question is, why do you think Conrad described the hospital as looking like hell? My connection is my grandpa was in World War II, and he had to come home because he was shot, just like Erich was.
I think the main idea is you can always depend on your friends because the group of tank engineers brought Eris to the hospital when he got shot. Inference. I think that Eris is going to deny to go home and he's going to die in the battlefield. Connection. My connection is with Nikolai sharing his vodka with Conrad because I play Nazi zombies and there's a Russian named Nikolai who's addicted to vodka. I think my question is, do you think Eris will go home or stay?
In this section, Conrad's friend gets sent to a hospital and they had to argue about Eric getting onto the helicopter because there were other people with worse wounds than him. But he got on because they had a higher rank than the officer. Connection. My connection is text to world on how Vasily and Yelena are arguing about something. This reminds me of when me and my brother would always argue about who got to shoot the gun. Inference. I think that Conrad's friend will die because of something will shoot them down like a machine gunner or a sniper.
Main idea. In this section, Vasily and Yelena use a strategy to draw hiding Germans out so Yelena can snipe them. Vasily and Yelena are Russian soldiers hiding in buildings of rubble in the Battle of Stalingrad. This strategy is very risky and almost costs Vasily his life, but he still does it, trusting Yelena all the way. This is important because it teaches us to have faith in each other, even if it means giving up something. It reminds me of hockey, when we receive a new strategy from our coaches. We are unsure, but trust them anyway, even if it means we have to take a check to do it. The theme emerging from this is to trust and have faith in your teammates, even if we have to potentially give up something. Connection. In this section, Conrad's group has lost a man in battle and have been injured, but they still go on, fighting off the freezing cold and the sight of others injured. I have a text-to-text connection on this. It reminds me of another book on World War II, where another brave soldier runs into the scene of war, getting shot 4 times and losing all of his comrades beside him. Even though he is fighting off fear and injury, he still goes on strong. Inference. I infer that Vasily will have serious doubts about how good his homeland of Russia really is. I think this because Yelena tells him a story about her dad was killed by them because he was the wealthiest farmer where they lived, and confirms what could have happened to Vasily's missing uncle, both of whom were Russians. He's mad at Yelena for telling him this, but at the same time knows she is right. I think Vasily will ponder this for a while. Question. Why do you think that Yelena is Sergei's favorite sniper from the papers he finds?
I think that the main idea for this part of the book is when Turnberry doesn't get his German that he was supposed to get from Sergei after Sergei took the turnip. So he came down to Sergei's basement, gave him a rifle, and said, "Go kill me my German." I think that the main idea is to not take promises that you can't keep.
in this part of the book, Sergei is given a rifle that because he can't keep his promise. And he wants to be a sniper. I have a text-to-self connection on this. Because whenever I was younger, I always wanted to be a sniper in the war. I don't know why, but I just always wanted to be a sniper, nothing else. I think that Sergei will leave. I think if Sergei leaves the rifle where he put it, under some rocks and under a water tank, I think that it will get damaged and maybe destroyed because of where he put it. Because if a bomb hits near or directly on it, the rifle will get flooded with water and covered and crunched with rocks, which would definitely damage or destroy it. Question. Do you think that Sergei will kill the German that he owes to get even with Turnberry, or do you think he'll just leave the rifle there and say he's not going to?
I will answer Isaac's question. I think that Sergei will keep the gun hidden because Sergei will forget about it. I think that because a bomb might hit it and it might even get more hidden in the rubble.
I'm gonna answer Tyler's question, and I think that it's his favorite sniper because she saved him earlier in the book.
I will be answering Isaac's question. His was, do you think that Sergei will kill the German he owes to get even with Tolstoy, or do you think he'll leave the rifle there and say he's not going to? I think that Sergei will use the rifle to practice his skills, but he won't actually use it on a German officer. I think that shooting the gun will spark his interest in doing that kind of stuff, which leads him to being a police like in the beginning. Main idea. In this section, Conrad is the only one left from his squad of soldiers, so he walks all the way to a military bunker where he thinks his brother is. Conrad is a German soldier fighting for control of Stalingrad in World War II. His brother Joseph is there, and he graciously helps Conrad. This is important because it shows how kind humans can be to each other. It teaches us the value of helping people in need. If you help people, you will also feel better about yourself, knowing you've done the right thing. The theme emerging from this is to help others in need. Connection. In this section, Conrad stumbles into his brother's command bunker, weak, tired, and hungry. So his brother helps nurse him and feeds him and lets him sleep. I have a text-to-world connection on this. It reminds me of when some of the members of my church went on a trip to Haiti. They helped the people there, just like Conrad's brother helped him. Question. Why do you think that Vasily agreed to put Yelena out of her pain and misery? Out of my previous 4 inferences, I got 2 right. I got my first pretty much right, because I predicted that small Allied army squads would come and do some damage to the Germans, and small squads had come and damage to Germans' army. My second was wrong. I had inferred that Vasily's piano-playing abilities would help them out later on, but they didn't, although it was useful previously. My third was right, as I predicted that Vasily would be calm under Yelena's watch after his initial fear of battle, which he was. My last was wrong, because Vasily hadn't thought of his discussion with Yelena about how good his homeland of Russia really was after they had it, and I predicted he would think about it later. Some hints for good inferences are pay attention to little details, because they could be big later on. Also, infer on something that could happen as consequences to an action in your current chapter.
I think that the main idea for this part of the book is when Sergei tries to save Vasily and Yelena from Conrad. I think that the theme of this is to do what you think is right, no matter what other people think. Like when Conrad tried to kill Yelena and Vasily, and Sergei shot him before he could. Connection. In this part of the book, my connection is text-to-world because whenever Yelena and Vasily got trapped, it reminded me of the miners in Chile who had the cave-in. I think that my question is, what do you think Sergei will do with Yelena and Vasily's body. Do you think that he will deliver the letter that Vasily wrote to his father? For my inferences, I got 3 out of 4 correct. The the week that I got mine that was not correct was week 4. I said that I think the rifle will be broken because of the spot that Sergei put it in, beside a large water tank and covered in rocks. I think I should have thought of more clues, like how Sergei would have moved it because he always wanted to become a sniper and would never let the rifle die.
Main idea. In this section, Vasily, Yelena, Conrad, and Joseph all died. It was a sad part in the book because Vasily and Yelena died. They just killed 2 Russian officers and they just got blew up by a bomb. Yelena is in a lot of pain, and Vasily puts her out of her misery. Connection. In this section, almost every main character dies after being shot, froze to death, blew up, and more. This reminds me of when our class of grades 7 and 8 was reading The Book Thief. In the end of the book, everyone dies in Woking, but the main character, Liesel, is down in the basement while she is writing her book. There was a bombing while Liesel was down there. She was not affected by the bombing because she was down there. So when she came outside, she saw a bunch of people lying somewhere on the ground, either dead or so wounded they died of fatality. Inference. I got 2 out of 5 correct, I think. I sort of got the first week and the third week, because Vasily and Connor did die. But I also forgot to add in that Conrad's comrades also died. And also, Yelena died too. And the Russians did win the war. What will happen to Sergei after the war is done?
A. New experiences with new people. Getting to know your classmates before you graduate to high school. And use other people's thoughts and ideas to help you better understand the book yourself. B. Yes, but only one that comes to mind. It is very hard to contact other students if help is needed and you don't understand something. C. C. I would read them just to make sure I didn't miss any of my info in my post. D. Have a way of contacting group members to thoroughly discuss the book. E. I think it would be a lot more convenient if they were allowed to just post text because because we won't always have access to a microphone.
I think that the advantages are that you can have other kids from a different school that you've never met before and you can see their point of view on the book. Also, if you need help sometimes, you can ask, if no one in your school from your group knows the answer to your questions, you can ask someone else from a different school. Some of the disadvantages I've had is that sometimes other schools can be off time on their recordings. Like, we have different schedules than them, so they'll have a different lab time than we will. So your questions won't get answered, or they will get answered. You never know.
You get to A. What are the advantages of VoiceThread? I think is getting to know new people. The people in your group can help you understand the book better. The disadvantages of VoiceThread would you don't get to communicate back and forth. Question C. Because if the book confuses you, your group members can easily help you if they understand it. Question D. I would make more FaceTime for the group members just so they get to know each other and they can become better friends.
Some advantages of working with another school on a book club are that you can hear different thoughts and opinions on the book, and you have more people to help and be helped by. You also learn to problem solve better because you are working with people you can visually communicate with. It helps build good communication and work skills. Some disadvantages are that when someone is away, they can't record, so you can't listen, and sometimes VoiceThread may run slow. Also, sometimes you can't hear someone's recording clearly, and it is harder to communicate with each other. Listening to my members on VoiceThread helped me gain understanding of the text, because I got to hear different thoughts and opinions on the text, which gave me a clearer understanding of the book. I would listen to people's questions at least 3 times, so I could answer exactly what they wanted. And I like the Book Thief because of the fact that you were working with friends from either here or Brussels, but you couldn't talk to them face to face, which made it challenging but fun.